Western civilization is moving closer to a point of irreconcilable, unstable equilibrium, as frighteningly increasing numbers of people trust nothing. Media, academia, and especially the governments are no longer held in high esteem. Regaining trust is often impossible after betrayal. However, transparency is essential to any healing process, and that is the essence of the Don Sullivan Show. Please listen to the team explore, probe, and debate cutting-edge science, technology, and computing. Play ball! Welcome again, folks, to another episode of the Don Sullivan Show. And today is, as always, a very different episode. No, I'm not climbing any mountains or going down to the bottom of a canyon, or I'm not having any medical incidents. We'll be doing that later in a couple of weeks. We're not on a cruise ship. We're not talking about other interesting, although scourge-like diseases. Today, we're talking about a different type of scourge. And we are going to get into this subject many times over the next number of months because it is pervasive, it is ubiquitous, and it's getting worse. And I am talking about what we call artificial intelligence. And we've had many episodes on this, but specifically, this is about how artificial intelligence is running amok and starting to create a situation in which we as a society have lost our understanding as to what is and what isn't real. I've written some articles in Database Trends and Applications magazine on this, the AI section, as well as the general section. And we're going to have a lot of discussion. So first of all, I have to read a waiver. Let me read the waiver again. All statements by the host and the guest on the Don Sullivan Show are the personal opinions of the host and the guest, all who agree that the following content is the property of Analytics LLC to be used publicly and exclusively on the Don Sullivan Show. And again, you can't see it, but all of our guests and Steve are nodding their heads. And so everybody's happy with it, and we can go on. Steve, Jersey Steve, say hello, and let's talk about this important subject.
Absolutely. Greetings from the Garden State. Today's episode is brought to you by License Fortress, the industry's first and only software asset management firm to offer both a financial and legal guarantee at its highest level of service. Whether it's Oracle, Microsoft, or VMware, License Fortress helps organizations stay compliant, avoid audits, and save money. Learn more at licensefortress.com. And please support our producer by visiting axtinc.com, AXTINK.com. Subscribe to his YouTube channel and help support his efforts to create humorous animation. And coach the league's worst Pee-wee hockey team to a miraculous championship after he was recently sentenced to community service. Back to you, Don.
I'll tell you, that's better than what he did yesterday. So, okay, that's good.
He's a busy guy.
All right. Well, let me introduce our esteemed guest, Marian Newsome. And Marian, and I'm going to allow her to give her resume, even though she is a repeat guest. And I want to thank her sincerely for having joined us again, and hopefully many times in the future, because this is such an important subject. But specifically, Marian, I refer to, and she can give a much more in-depth description. But Marian is a AI ethics scholar. That's the way I like to phrase it. And that's how I understand Marian. And I'm going to, and I usually don't do this, the title of this particular episode is What Are We Doing? What boundaries must be placed on AI? Marian, please introduce yourself and tell us about yourself a little bit again.
So I'm Marian Newsome. I am one of the first IEEE certified AI lead assessors. That means that I actually look behind the black box and see what guardrails are in place for creating AI, the models, the implementation. And as an 18-year professional in data privacy, security, and auditing, I've had Fortune 500 experience, and I continue to work in this field as a consultant, looking at AI implementations, the guardrails around it, and the ethical things about what we can do with the technology and what we should do.
Well, Marian, we asked you to join us on the Don Sullivan Show. It's so little warning because, quite honestly, we need your help. We personally need your help. And not just the equivalent of a doctor's visit, but an ER visit. I have to admit, we've been having too much fun with some of these tools, and it really just struck me really hard a few weeks ago when Steven sent me a video, and the video was of me, but it wasn't me, and it was of me talking about the Don Sullivan Show. And I happen to know that there are 3 people named Donald Sullivan in the Denver area. There's somebody in Texas who happens to be the CRO of the Texas A&M University who accidentally got a package from me once. He doesn't even know it. It got pulled back from him. If you're out there, other Donald Sullivan, you can give me a call. I found you on LinkedIn. But I like, Steve, who is this? Who is this guy? And Steve says, well, no, I just made it up. I created this, and it looked real to me. It had me. And I'm honestly pretty cynical and pretty worldly overall, but it fooled me. And so what we realized is that using these AI marketing tools to develop skits and parodies for promotional purposes and having a lot of fun with them was all fine and wonderful until somebody gets poked in the eye, and I certainly did. So this is all frightening, Marian. What should we do?
So first of all, we kind of entered this area with AI and technology where I can't trust my eyes anymore.
Nope.
What I see, it can have the resemblance of me, but it isn't me. And so we start to get into frameworks where we really need to start. It's not just the technology. We have to have a multi-layered approach to help. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to keep my kids away from it. As corporations, I'm using it to create these marketing. What happens to someone takes my brand, misuses it in these different type of skits, and then we get into some really dark side of what we used to call the innocent domains, where we just allow children to have access to new technology. It keeps them quiet. They learn a lot, but there are some dark use cases in those innocent domains that have the potential not only to harm,
a lot of them,
not only to harm physically, but also mentally, and they can follow you a lifetime.
So, Steve, explain what you did to knock me off my chair as I was watching a baseball game, stressing out over that.
I'm not going to name the app itself because I don't know if we want to do that.
Go ahead.
Oh, Sora.
Yeah, we used them. They're free.
It's from OpenAI, and it's great. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, sure. And it does have guardrails. If you try to get it to do things that are naughty, it will basically tell you, no, this is against our guidelines. This is to, it won't do anything that could be conceived as sexual. It's very careful about a number of things, but I've seen what people have done already with it. And, any tool, people on the internet are going to find ways, loopholes to get around and have it do things that are inflammatory, what they might view as funny, but that are inappropriate. And
it was so well done that you just shook me to my core for a second. And right away I call him up, say, who is this?
You were worried it was an imposter. You had somebody on your turf, but yeah, it is pretty funny. And it's amazing. At the same time, there are limits to it as far as what it's capable of too. It'll create a new character each time. You can't necessarily, unless you upload basically, it seems like the way it works is you upload your face, you do a little cameo, and it can create videos with you in them. Or you can tell it to create videos and you can describe things. But for example, if you just, it's touchy about certain historical people. Like if you ask it to create, a famous dictator or something like that, it's going to say, no way, Jose. And it won't let you upload other people's photos to utilize to make videos, because I think they understood that was a bridge too far, because you'll definitely get sued or something like that. So there are guardrails, but I think people are also actively working. They try and find ways around.
What we've seen is
right,
Marian, when you put guardrails up, that the nefarious are going to get around them.
So yes, the nefarious, but also normal people. So like when I found out what we were going to talk about, I went on there and played the anti-ethics person. the bizarro kind of AI assessor, right? And so I do want to acknowledge that OpenAI, Runway, a few of these companies actually have guardrails built in. But there are a lot of open source tools that can do the same thing, create the deep fakes that don't have that level of rigorously. They don't have those guardrails. And so, not to divulge how to get around it, but if a smart 14-year-old can take ChatGPT, take that inappropriate prompt that you're trying to create and tell ChatGPT, can you give me this prompt without using this brand name, without using this person? And you put that in, you get some pretty good deep fakes, right? So the guardrails are there. I think what we really need to start looking at in this area, synthetic media and AI, is detection of when that media is actually created by these tools. So looking more at the creation, the metadata of what's creating it, and not so much the content. The content has other really big ramifications, but that's where we have to start on the platform. So, you can get around it. Without
like you said, the platforms get created overnight, and then they leave overnight sometimes.
There are already people that have been arrested for creating, indecent images using AI tools like CSAM and stuff like that. They have arrested people. There are some really dark places this certainly can go.
But we already had uses of technology that had dark places we never really fully got our hands around. And so even using if you look back, probably dating myself to the days of AOL, this human nature always has that dark side. And you're not going to convince everybody that you shouldn't. And the laws in this space are so outdated, they don't keep up with the technology. We haven't got our hands around websites using celebrity likeness in indecent, compromising positions. So
this
now
is just something
with AI,
that even if
to create, go ahead.
So even if we trusted our government, which of course has done nothing for the last month, and I don't think that's hyperbole, they've just literally, by definition, done nothing. They really don't have the institutional capability. If they had the individual capacity to get an intellectual grip around this, they wouldn't. The bureaucracy doesn't allow them to move fast enough to deal with it. And so, as we're going to get into this discussion, this is a societal as a whole issue that we really almost can't rely on the government, even if we want to.
So I agree with that, because we have people in Congress. We have people in Congress who we still have to explain the internet to, explaining they don't understand what ChatGPT is. They don't understand those concepts. They're not using it. And so it's basically we're letting the horses out running, doing whatever. And there is no guardrail. If you're looking from a legal standpoint, we have frameworks. You still can be charged with fraud. You still can be charged with libel, all of those frameworks. But the technology itself, we don't have those advocates in Congress. And these AI companies are not really motivated. And business corporations are looking to make money off of that free data, those public likenesses, the things that you post. The thing that I found the most interesting about the release of Sora, if we're going to say them, is that they also created this full platform where there is nothing on that platform but AI generated content. There is no human content of, hey, I'm this or I'm that and I do this. It's all AI generated. So we're actually taking the social out of social media and making it AI content.
Oh, definitely. I mean, me and my
Maybe
buddy,
Musk is right.
We'll make funny videos of ourselves, but you can make videos. I think of anyone else that has done the Cameo and is on the platform. I think it alerts them, and but it's interesting. There is a social aspect to it, and it's all around AI generated videos.
But exactly what you said. Anyone that's on the platform right now, you have to be invited. So if I'm not invited, and I'm a public figure or someone, I've created videos, content creator. You could be literally making videos of me and I have no notification. I have no way of knowing. And then they show up on Facebook. They do require now the labeling. But a lot of people, that labeling is not that big. And so we have people.
They might not know.
They might not know.
Tagging a step above it. And
Don didn't know. They have that little watermark on it, but when I sent him the video, he didn't know what it was.
Right.
I just looked at him like, what the hell? What is this? Who is this guy? It's good though.
I told him he's wearing a Yankees jacket. He talks with a Jersey accent. He's got silver hair. It was pretty good.
Steve, you mentioned the people getting arrested, and age-old TV shows like Law and Order develop scripts which are always mimicking real-world situations. Dick Wolf does that pretty well.
Pulled from the headlines.
Yeah, pulled from the headlines. Of course, there are dramatized and often biased, but they're so close to reality. It sometimes can be scary if they're directed well, which sometimes they're not. But in one particular episode, they had teenagers using one-click publicly available tools to create not just images, but videos of each other in terrible, compromising situations. Not just the obvious sexuality, but in every other type of much worse situation imaginable. Marian, what is the line here? I mean, these are kids. These were 14-year-olds in this particular episode doing this. And of course, it's TV. It's overly dramatic, but it's not unrealistic.
No, it's not, and it's not designed to be unrealistic. It's designed to be as close to your likeness as possible, to where you can't trust your eyes. You have to really look, and it does use your likeness. And so I always go back to intent. What's the intent? Are you intending it to be malicious? And where are you? What is your intent, and why are you using it, and why did you distribute it that way?
It's so hard to legislatively build in, though. Almost impossible.
You can't, right? It starts at the parental level, and so you have to, based on how your framework and your belief systems for your children, you still have to educate them not only on how their actions impact others, positively, negatively. They still have to understand the concept of harm on all levels. Not only you're harming me physically, you could be harming me with some of the racial stuff. You could really be harming me, my self-esteem. You could be harming me in a sexual manner that makes people think of me and treat me differently. And it's out there forever. It's not going to just wash away.
That's the big thing. Online's forever. And when we were growing up, you if you did something stupid or wrong or made mistakes, it wasn't forever. Documented.
It wasn't forever in the public domain, but it's
in the public domain.
At 13, they talk about at the family reunions.
At family, yes, that's
it's in your head.
Yeah.
Right.
But not
it's in Aunt Jenny's memory, and she ain't gonna let you forget.
Yeah.
And so you think about that and you amplify that.
You remember that time when you make me sit on that whoopee cushion? I'll never forget it.
Yep.
And then so we talk about parents, and then we have school systems, right? We have schools that are looking at digital literacy as part of their curriculum, actually explaining what digital harm is to kids. And some even in this area go as far to have what they call a lock bag for for your phone during class. You can't be taking pictures of people unattended in class or in the cafeteria and then using those later to create these videos. But
why do they even have them in school at all at this point? Why are they allowed to actually walk through school? And why is it necessary to be holding on to
I think
a phone
they
in
want
school?
to. I think it's probably a number of things. They want the parents will want them to be able to call them if they need something.
That's not their choice in the sense of when you're in.
I don't know if the school wants the liability of having to keep track of these either. I don't know. Marian, what's your take on that?
No, so schools don't want the liability of having to track it. That's personal property.
Yeah, they're $1,000 each.
Right, and they don't want that. They also don't want things to be happening on their campuses that they are legally responsible for that are crimes. They're crimes. We just need to call them that. They're actual crimes. We have one on the books for a lot of this stuff.
Reminds me of High School Catfish. Did you see that documentary on Netflix? That was taking place partially during school.
It was.
Yeah, the school had to get involved, and it was crazy.
And so there's another show there called Adolescence. Have you seen that one?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah, so that one is it takes the opposite. It goes from the dark side of how social media is impacting kids on campus and actually playing out those really dark, negative connotations. And even those secret languages that kids use on campus. Schools don't want to be liable for that. They don't want a crime to actually originate on the campus and end so drastically offsite. But as we talk about this, we have to start talking about it as a multi-layered approach. We talk about defense in depth in cybersecurity. We have to start applying that to AI, not only in the technology, but in the society as well. We have to have parents involved. We have to have school districts involved. We have to have state laws, which moves a lot quicker than federal laws. And it has to be that multi-layered approach. There are even international laws in China. Like now they're requiring watermarks from content creators to say that you actually have the expertise to be talking about the things that you're talking about. I can't come on a show and talk about, oh yeah, I can cure X, Y, and Z, and then say I only play a doctor on TV. They're actually requiring you to prove your credentials. So
before you present yourself as an expert.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's
so
fraud.
Really passed.
It's fraud on a different level that was certainly never considered when the actual FTC and other fraud laws were written. It's a different way.
But the FTC is still dealing with in 1998, right? And we're dealing with 2025 technology, and we're looking at the advent of quantum. And so all these things are like, so it's like the perfect storm. But the way I look at it, it's like the perfect storm of irresponsibility, right? I can do it, whether I should or not. I can do it. I can do it in 60 seconds. I can distribute it. You don't have to know about it. Everybody else around you may know about it. Morally, they're too ashamed to tell you about it. Meanwhile, I'm destroying your reputation. I'm misusing your likeness. And AI is enabling this. It's a dual dilemma. It's a great tool. There's great uses for it. But we have to start looking at that it is a dual dilemma. We have to start addressing it. So many layers. And one starts with education. Parents
and it's easy.
Know what they can do.
It's easy to blame the companies, but there are so many in Silicon Valley, and some of them last a week, and some of them, of course, are worth trillions of dollars. But some aspire to be acquired, and that's all they aspire to do. So they want to have something of value, and some, as you've been mentioning, are truly nefarious. And the question is, and you kind of already talking about this, is where are the boundaries and who has to set them? I think you've already stated it, in that the states are more equipped than the federal government at this point.
They absolutely are. And I think one thing we have to think about, you kind of mentioned this last month, things can go up from state courts to federal courts, back down again. It's like a roller coaster. You can literally go from having an injunction one day to back to where you started the next day. Our legal system doesn't move at the speed of technology. And we don't have lawmakers who understand enough about the technology, enough about the consequences to really grasp the urgency. So like you said, it's definitely an emergency. The technology is gone. If we I think about other conversations I have with people around like the 3D printed world, the IP around building architectural plans that don't belong to you. You're not you're not the famous architect, and you're out here duplicating it with 3D printing models. You think about 3D printed guns. Those guns are already out on the streets, and we're talking about how we should be regulating it. It's too late. So we need to really start thinking about how do we get more proactive in the legal frameworks that we have.
So if it's too late to regulate it, what do you mean by proactive in the legal frameworks?
So for AI in particular, I think we have an opportunity. We are in this age of perfect storm of irresponsibility, but we do have an opportunity to really start getting a handle on it now. What you can do now with the technology we have is harmful enough. If I think about it this way, that if you believe quantum computing is coming in 5 to 10 years, not only is it going to make a great, perfect deep fake, we also need to be at the same time developing great detection of synthetic media that's created by AI. We're going to put all our innovation into making it as perfect as possible with quantum. We also need that same level of energy and effort around encryption, the detection of these AI created content. All of those things, we hear a lot about all these great things that quantum is going to bring, but we don't really push what we also need in place to be developing in parallel.
So let me step back a minute, and I have a position, and you can disagree with it, and I may be naive and overly simplistic with this, but I got a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old grandkid. I know for a fact they will not have smartphones or anything along those lines, whatever 10 years from now exists, until they're 16 years old or above. They may have something that they can get messages from a very, very small subset of their family members, but they're not going to have smartphones. I guarantee you that. I think that if we as a society have been able to institute laws that stop adults who are Marines for 3 years, that is 21-year-olds, from drinking a Coors Light, and we're now in certain states and certain places, even in Europe, going to be able to completely stop generations from smoking, why can't we stop kids from getting a hold of this toxic system, getting involved in this toxic system?
Because there are organizations that believe you shouldn't give any kid a cell phone until they are at least in the 8th grade. There are some of those organizations out there who are pushing for that. I think of it like drunk driving. Mad Mothers Against Drunk Driving made it much more socially toxic to drink and drive before we actually got stricter DUI laws.
Yeah, and by the way, I always thought that the problem wasn't the drinking, it was the driving. So if they reversed it and they stopped the kids from driving and they drank, it probably would have been safer. But that's I'm being a little bit flippant, but there's a point.
But that's the lesson learned, right? And so this next generation of that grassroots is what we have to have. We cannot rely on top down. We cannot rely on regulations coming in, and a lot of people don't want you in my home telling me what I can and cannot give to my kids.
They do it with alcohol. They do it with cigarettes.
All the other kids have a phone, so if you don't get a phone,
we've accepted alcohol and cigarettes and pornography. Yeah. Obviously,
cigarettes are a lot less acceptable now. They used to be back in the 90s. The smoking section. People were smoking in movies. Nowadays, they're a lot more
booze and obviously drugs.
Oh well, yeah,
that wasn't the case in the 1800s. Cocaine was, acceptable all the way up to
but wasn't everybody drunk constantly in the 1800s? Things ran on booze.
Is much more potent now. After that's what happened. That's what caused the temperance movement. That alcohol became much more dense in terms of its alcohol content. So
it makes more money now, right? And so we have these big global brands selling alcohol around the world and promoting it around the world. Is your tequila better than mine? Is my scotch,
But the
And
point
so,
is there is precedent for setting, especially when you're dealing with minors, age limits. And of course, the
Isn't
bizarre
Australia doing
nature.
that, or try? Didn't they? Have they done that? Or
I think
were they
so.
trying to do it with social media? Like you have to be 16 at least. Wasn't that something? I don't know if it
but we
went through,
have
but I
laws
heard
like
that.
OPA that say we can't, we have some laws that address minor use of social media. But do we have the technology? Is it good enough? Those age verification
Yeah,
systems,
that's the
Of course,
tough
they're
part.
cursory. They're cursory
no,
at best. Yeah.
I mean,
no,
right now, no, because it's just like, are you 18? you know, so
right.
that's not going to do a whole lot. But I think there are other ways you could, but I don't know if it would be
Most
enough.
definitely. There are other ways. And if we take the time to develop them in parallel with the technology, we already know what we need, but the investment isn't there. There's a speed to get to market first and to make those dollars. And so we don't do those things that we know we can do. We can put up better guardrails, but
Yeah.
is there any pressure to do that? And that's where we get into, you have to have the grassroots. It has to come bottoms up.
We're in agreement on this call.
Yeah, certainly.
On this episode completely. But let me take a moment, and this is going to be really dark. I'm going to broaden the horrific horizons of this subject. And I really don't think this is something that's really been considered, or even on the basic awareness of most people at all that discuss this subject. But composite creations of narratives and avatars from publicly available data is constitutional, according to SCOTUS' lack of precise rulings. And I'm referring specifically to the 2008 lower court ruling of Major League Baseball versus a group of fantasy baseball companies who claimed that the data, just the data, used in fantasy baseball, absent the names, was public domain. And SCOTUS allowed the Supreme Court allowed the lower court ruling to stand. Now, in my opinion, that's directly led to the scourge of sports gambling, which is another but peripheral subject. So if public data or data is public data is public domain, what possible limits could ever exist? Because what we have to understand is data, and Stephen and I, this is our world. Mm-hmm. Data is everything, right? Marian, it's your world too. I don't mean to exclude you from that particular point, but people have to understand that data is everything. And I'll refer to something as simple as what is presently now a socially acceptable methodology for evaluating models. Okay, so we go from 2020 to 2023. The idea of referring to a woman as a 9 or a 10 became something to get you fired. Even if you were referring back to the Bo Derek types of movies. Well, now there's an official rating system that actually calculates the golden ratio, Da Vinci's ratio of the length between your eyes and the height of your body versus your arm span and so on. And they actually rate particularly models, not just women, but men too, models based on how close they are to the golden ratio. That's publicly available. This stuff is going in places that we have never even considered. And I'm about to make it worse here. What do you think about that, Marian? What can... I mean, this is nuts, right?
It is nuts. And we think about, so here's my stance. I agree. Data is like oil now. If you've got data, you can do anything and everything. It's like oil. People are actually making money off public data. But publicly available data, stats, those type of things, stats in particular. That's
stats of everything. Everything.
Yeah, so I totally agree. Even the ones with the asterisk, but they're stats. They're things that actually happened. Babe Ruth did hit all those home runs. A-Rod with an asterisk also, but those are proven facts. We're getting into the age of where public data does not allow you to steal my identity. We're talking about facial recognition. We're talking about facial likeness. You mentioned the Da Vinci model, which is the perfect Venn diagram kind of thing, because it's actually using stats to create your likeness that you're now using as your credentials to log into sites. It's precise enough that it can fool someone at a glance, even yourself, to think, hey, that's me. That looks familiar enough. I know that's me. And so we've got into this situation where this argument about public data is public data and anybody could have it. But of course, the business wants to use it. It's free. The AI models want to consume it. It's free. You consent to it out of convenience. So, hey, you gave me permission. But now we've gotten into that as becoming our identity. And we are using it. It's much more easy for me to change a password than go out and get plastic surgery to change my face to use it.
Although sometimes when they want a special character and a capital and all that gets really difficult times. So that's a different story.
Well, people change how they look online, though. There's the whole digital persona thing where people are photoshopping themselves and putting all these filters on, and I think that's more of the younger generation. But yeah, it's an interesting paradox.
It's not the younger generation. So I was recently fooled by that. There's a creator, I'm not going to say who she is online, but she's a technology influencer, creates content online on IG. I kept looking at her stuff and I kept thinking, oh, she must have a glam squad. And so then I looked up her LinkedIn, totally different person. And so she's using what they're calling the AI hybrid brand, where I present to you based on the Da Vinci model, what you would like for me to sound like, what you would like for me to look like, for me to be able to influence you. And then I could look totally different. It's literally the before and after kind of the swan surgery transformation. When you look at their LinkedIn and you're like, oh my, okay, I said, oh my God, who is that?
Well, it's frightening. And here's where, to me, the question lies, and there may be an answer, but we don't have it here. It's in another Supreme Court decision, which is that something that I support in every way. It's that of the name, image, and likeness protection and it was specifically for college athletes, as I was 40-something years ago, and I was an indentured servant. And to be honest, the whole concept, in my opinion, of a student athlete is a definition of indentured servitude in sports. These are all professional franchises, but I digress. The point is that your name, image, and likeness is now protected and you own it, but you don't own the data, which means that this very tiny spot that I'm pointing to, which the audience can't see in the top of my head, is a data point, which follows the calculations that would base me or somehow rate my level of beauty. Steve would be ahead of me, but rate my level of beauty on this model scale and every other piece of data that could be publicly obtained in some publicly available picture. That data is available, and therefore, and then wait till you see where I go with this, Marian, but therefore, a image of me can be created that is close to me, or a composite of me and Steve, or me and Steve and 1,000 other people that isn't me. And that is effectively what Stephen did to scare the crap out of me a few weeks ago, is arbitrarily create someone who had a lot of my attributes, who looked like me in certain ways, but clearly wasn't me. Now, we're not going to come up with an answer for this, and we can't possibly hope legislatures could, but there's an overlap here, which is absolutely frightening, which I don't think is getting any attention at all.
So I agree with that, because AI uses, like you said, the different stats in your face, the different measurements in your face to create that likeness that it isn't you. And so based on that court ruling, that isn't you. And it's just different enough that it's not protected under those laws. So I think we do need to talk about this. And I think there needs to be a lot more discussion on where do we draw that line that stats become identity, because that is exactly what is happening. You're taking your facial measurements, you're making likenesses that are not technically you. It's not you but it looks enough like you. It fools people enough like you. And it is, for all intents and purposes, you. That's your identity. And we need to expand the boundaries, my opinion, and how we define identity in the AI age.
That's a great answer. Yeah, and I think that's absolutely wonderful. And I'll lead to this point. And I'm going to actually add a note here of positive sentiment surrounding the political environment of the last 10 years. As awful as so much of it is, as much as we have reached what is really an irreconcilable divide, and maybe many of them, who knows, it may even be similar to 20 years before the French Revolution. And I don't mean to get into that, but what we have seen is that is a result of a groundswell of lack of acceptance and public faith in our 17,000, starting with the federal governments. And that's why we see, I think the ultimate first reason why we see the federal government, will say, in the situation that it's in now. And that, to me, is actually, in this respect, in this conversation, a positive, because it indicates that the society is willing to work from the ground up, even if, it's caused chaos in other respects. But maybe, just maybe, and we've had this discussion already on this conversation in this episode, maybe from the ground up, meaning the families, the parents can seriously get involved and stop this before it gets worse. And that's, they have to be aware of it. Do you think that's possible in American society presently?
So I do think that's possible. I think my biggest concern is America right now as a society, well, we always kind of have been, the harm has to come before we actually start to do something about it.
Always reactive.
Always reactive. So I think about kids, especially kids, who are being impacted and hurt and harmed by this technology. The potential to do so much good, so much harm, that are not protected right now. Parents who don't know what the technology actually does. We're not educating them with digital literacy. But there's going to have to be so much harm. And we've seen harm already with social media in general. We've seen the suicide.
Yeah, but this is beyond social media. This is into all of the apps that are available.
It is.
Well, yeah, and we've talked about video creation, but there was it happened, and the kid that was using, a large language model for advice around committing suicide. Like there have been some pretty striking incidents already, but I would tend to agree with you, Marian, that it appears, and this seems to be the way things always go, it'll be the Wild West until there's something big enough that offends everybody, and it's such a major issue that they have to clamp down with regulation.
Yeah, and so and that's
but they won't know how, Steve.
I know, but they'll figure out something.
Yeah.
And when I say figure out something, at least it'll have to look like they're doing something. I don't know that there's a Sarbanes-Oxley for AI, or you know what I mean, but
that worked well. But yeah, it's going to be a lot more difficult than that.
It helps consultants. A lot of consultants got jobs, and
at least that puts some specific penalties on official CEOs and CFOs and so on for allowing their companies to be run as financial fraud vehicles. They did that, but that was a simple part of it.
This is a lot more complicated, obviously.
Yeah. But I think my opinion, not supported by the sponsors of the show, is we have to get back to having discussions, not so much around our differences, but the things that will impact us all. Not about, we have a lot of discussions about our differences and how we want things implemented, but there are harms that are universally going to harm people on a personal level, in your community, in your home, in your country. And we have to start talking about the things that we share more and coming up with really talking about and really being really serious about driving solutions and not so much about right fighting. And I think that's where we've gotten.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, Marian. And I honestly think that despite the fact that the United States, and I will get political for a second in this regard, is at a point of irreconcilability that probably hasn't been seen since the 1870s. This is a subject that, if the general public were really aware of it, there would be virtually no disagreement. I mean, and this is why I wanted to have this episode so quickly, and why I really want to have this as an ongoing conversation and even develop this into panel discussions, because everyone needs to understand that this is an existential crisis. And I don't mean to say that hyperbolically, like Arnold Schwarzenegger is coming back like some fever-pitched drunken session with a trillionaire to be. That is, they're going to take us over in some way and blow us all up. This is something that is going to happen from within, and very soon, because, and I'll end up on this subject, and we are going to mention it. We've already mentioned it already. I believe that the productization of quantum computing on some level is 5 to 10 years away. And once that happens, it's all over. And we all know on this show and others, once quantum computing comes, any type of security is gone. Just totally gone.
Y2K moment, right? They're going to have to.
It is a Y2K moment, but it is going to be imposed ourselves. It's not going to be some strange, unknown event that might happen. This is going to be calculated, because quite honestly, very simply, for the mathematicians out there, quantum computing can break any hashing algorithm that is created, that starts with a hash key of a prime number inside of milliseconds, no matter how big it is. And so therefore, the security we have right now is gone. And so anything that we put on any of these tools is also going to be just pervasively available.
Free
like
reign.
Meat out to a bunch of wild dogs during a safari someplace. It's and again, that is hyperbolic, and I don't mean to get that way, but do you think
Don's data breach
that,
safari?
Marian?
I like that analogy.
It is true. Do you think I'm overstating that, or is it really an existential crisis that is pending?
So it is an existential crisis pending. There are companies out there, so I will lead with a glimmer of hope. There are companies out there who are focused on securing quantum. Some of them are in big names even now in technology. But we still are so focused on the innovation of what quantum can do. We have not addressed what it should do, or what we need to pivot in the security industry to actually address. We're still thinking about passwords and vaults and those type of things.
Biometrics even.
Yeah, mind shift. Yeah.
Well, Marian, we're not going to have an answer in the next 5 to 10 to 2 minutes to 2 hours on this show, but we are going to have a lot more episodes, provided you are willing to grace us with your educated and scholarly presence along these lines. You are wonderful, and you've become my go-to person in these subjects, as I can't sleep at night. I can't anyway, but thinking about and I Stephen, I can't, just because I'm wondering why Isaiah Canafalefa only had a 2-foot lead in the 11th inning of that 7th game of the World Series. But this is 1,000 billion times more important. So
as one does,
I can't sleep. But the point is that we have to continue this discussion. And one of the things I hope this show is able to do is, as we have stated from the beginning, get science, technology, and computing concepts and subjects to the general public, who has, for the most part, ignored a lot of this on anything other than the cursory level from the time they were in 6th or 7th grade, because it really wasn't taught that well all the way through the secondary and even tertiary school systems of the higher level learning. So, Marian, I hope you come back to talk with us again. I hope you bring friends who can have a panel discussion, and we will open this up to have a large panel discussion, even maybe go longer than this, because this is something, and I would love to see power brokers answer some of these questions that we have actually posed here, because again, I think you agree with me that some of these questions, some of these points that we have discussed here are just simply not in the even large sphere of awareness of virtually anybody.
It's always a pleasure to come back. You always give me a different perspective about something. And so it's always an honor and a pleasure to come back, and definitely recommend it to my friends and colleagues.
All right. We'll plan on more every 3 months or so. That's your job, Steve. Every 3 months or so, we got to get these things going. All right, Steve, say goodbye to everybody, and then I'll take us out.
Thank you, as always, for joining us, Marian, and see you all soon again.
And as I always say, no matter what, even in these dire times of wondering whether or not Arnold Schwarzenegger in some form is going to come back and destroy our society, or we're going to do it on our own through all kinds of strange and interesting and unknown artificial intelligence, machine learning tools, and the future of quantum computing. Always remember the ultimate decision you should ask yourself, and the thing that you should remember, is that all at-bats are situational. See ya.